Hello, everyone. A very good day to all of you. So this time in our Flash Revision YouTube series, we are taking up 15 tricky SBAs and EMQs and also which are most commonly exam tested ones. So here I am with the module, a very important one, labor and delivery, from where you get many questions. So let's start. As usual, always keep in mind, hard work, smart moves, a strong mind with clear goals and bold action. All this combination leads to great success always. So incorporate this in your personality, okay? So here in this session, I have taken up the most important topics, that is the CTG images, which is very baffling for almost all of us. Then the other two very important topics in this module are assisted vaginal birth, the GTG, and the cesarean section, the NICE guideline, which has been updated recently. So let's start with the SBAs first. Number one SBA is regarding Suzanne, 34 years old, second gravida, with previous cesarean section for breech presentation in early labor. She has undergone anomaly scan at 20 weeks, which showed low-lying placenta. She is counseled regarding the risks of placenta accreta spectrum and is to be referred for a grayscale ultrasound scan and color Doppler to assess for accreta. Now, by what gestational age should this be done preferably? That is this color Doppler to assess for accreta. Now, routinely, when there is low-lying placenta or there is no previous cesarean section, then we say that the next scan is to be done at 32 weeks. But according to the NICE guideline of cesarean section, they say that this gestational age is 28 to 29 weeks, that is particularly for placenta accreta. If the routine 20-week scan shows placenta previa or low-lying placenta in a woman or pregnant person with a previous scar or a uterine previous, which may be cesarean scar or a uterine scar from other surgery, then refer for a grayscale ultrasound scan with color Doppler to assess for placenta accreta. And this scan should be done around 28 weeks, but no later than 29 weeks by a senior clinician with expertise in the diagnosis of placenta accreta. So if specifically they are asking that to rule out placenta accreta, when you will refer for a scan with color Doppler, then this gestational age has to be around 28 to 29 weeks. Coming to the second one, what is the suggested mode of birth for a woman who is co-infected with HIV and hepatitis C, both? If only HIV or if only hepatitis C is there, then obviously we can go safely with vaginal birth depending on the counts and all, viral load and all. But here, if co-infection with HIV and hepatitis C is there, then the preferable mode of birth becomes elective LSCS at 39 weeks. Okay. So according to NICE guideline, again, offer pregnant women who are co-infected with hepatitis C virus and HIV a planned cesarean birth so as to reduce the mother to baby transmission of both the viruses. And regarding the timings, whenever there is a planned cesarean birth to be carried out, do not routinely carry it out before 39 weeks, as this can increase the risk of respiratory morbidity in the babies. Coming to the third one, you are an ST5 working in ANC clinic. Now, Rosina, 27-year-old second gravida, had previous sequential instrumental vaginal delivery. She is now at around 6 months into her second pregnancy and is reporting severe anxiety and flashbacks regarding previous birth. Her fear is increasing with advancing gestational age. Now she is very adamant to go for vaginal delivery again and is requesting for a C-section in this pregnancy. Her FOBS score is 70. Now guys, FOBS is fear of birth scale. If it is more than 60, then it is of concern. Now what should be the next approach? So here, since she is reporting severe anxiety and flashbacks because of her previous traumatic experience, so it becomes more that towards post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD. So it's best that in this scenario, we refer her to a perinatal mental health specialist. That is option number C. Offer referral to a healthcare professional with expertise in providing perinatal mental health support. Because if a woman or pregnant person requests a cesarean section because they have tocophobia or other severe anxiety about childbirth, offer referral to a healthcare professional with expertise in providing perinatal mental health support so as to help with her anxiety. Now, regarding tocophobia, there is primary tocophobia, which is long-standing since childhood, and secondary tocophobia, which happens subsequent to a previous childbirth, which was experienced as traumatic. Okay, so here it's secondary tocophobia. This is about FABS. On a scale of 0 to 10, where 0 is not at all anxious and 10 is extremely anxious, how anxious do you feel about childbirth? This you can ask. If further information and clarity is needed, there is a whole scale, fear of birth scale. If FOBS score is higher than 60, a referral should be made to a specialist mental health midwife for further assessment. So just know that this FOBS means fear of birth scale. There is one more questionnaire, that is the Wijma Delivery Expectancy or Experience Questionnaire. This also is used as a psychometric measure of tocophobia. So just know this, know the term that this is a psychometric measure of tocophobia. And this is the pathway to intervention in pregnancy. If PTSD is there, then usually referral to specialist perinatal services carried out, and they resort to interventions like trauma-focused CBT or EMDR from NHS talking therapies, specialist perinatal service, or PETALS. Okay. Now coming to the fourth SPA, which of the following is not to be done routinely before cesarean birth? Now, regarding what routine investigations are required before cesarean birth, full blood count is necessary. Antibody screening and blood grouping with saving of serum is necessary. Whereas cross-matching of blood and clotting screen are not to be done routinely before cesarean birth. So the answer becomes both C and D. So see, before cesarean birth, carry out a full blood count to identify anemia, antibody screening and blood grouping with saving of serum. This much is to be carried out routinely in all. But do not routinely carry out the following tests before cesarean birth: cross-matching of blood, a clotting screen, and pre-op ultrasound for localization of the placenta. Depending on individual circumstances, we need to carry out this, not routinely. Okay. Then the fifth one, risk of fetal lacerations in women having a cesarean birth. Now, this is a percentage question. The numbers and percentages, baffle you all. But these are some of the important ones, the common ones, which all of you must have an idea about. So here the answer is 2%. Just a few more percentages I have kept here. Just go through this. Inform women who are having a cesarean birth that the risk of fetal lacerations is about 2%. Then inform women that endometritis, urinary tract, and wound infections occur in about 8% women who have had a cesarean birth. Using prophylactic antibiotics before skin incision reduces this infection. Okay. Do not use co-amoxiclav. This also is a very important point. Then another important number is this 4%. Stress incontinence occurs in about 4% of women after cesarean birth. The incidence of urinary tract injuries as such in cesarean births is 0.1%, or you can say 1 per 1,000. So these are a few important numbers and percentages related to cesarean section. Now next, coming to 6th SPA. A primiparous woman at 33 plus 4 weeks of gestation is admitted in labor at 11:30 and was found to be 3 centimeter dilated with the fetal head at -2 station. She ruptured membranes, draining clear liquor at 1:20 p.m. or you can say after approximately 2 hours. You were called to review the CTG at 14. Baseline was of 150, variability 3, no accelerations and variable decelerations more than 60 beats and lasting more than 60 seconds. This becomes a concerning characteristic. For last 35 minutes, occurring with almost every contraction, means repetitive also, and with concerning characteristics also, and for more than 35 minutes also. Okay, so this in itself becomes red. On vaginal examination, she was 5 centimeter dilated. and blood-stained liquor was noted. Blood-stained liquor, maybe abruption. So what is the next most appropriate course of action? So here, since it is a pathological CTG, blood-stained liquor is present. So in cases like these, always choose category 1 cesarean section because it is very, very suggestive of abruption. So delivery has to be expedited, and that also by category 1 cesarean section. Because in situations like abruption, rupture, uterus, or cord prolapse with such pathological or suspicious CTG, you will choose category 1 cesarean section. Now coming to 7th SBA, a 28-year-old primey, she's in active labor. On examination, cervical dilatation is 9 centimeter. Fetal head is 2/5 palpable per abdomen. Caput is 3+, above ischial spine station, and CTG is showing late decelerations. Now, what is the next best step in management? So here again, late decelerations now, especially according to the recent update, makes the CTG pathological immediately. Here, fetal head is 2/5 palpable yet. So we can do nothing but to expedite the delivery. We'll have to take her to the OT, reassess her, and then perform an emergency cesarean section. So always in cases like that, you should go through all the options one by one and suit the best one. Like apply vacuum and expedite delivery. We can't apply vacuum yet because she is not fulfilling the criteria, not even fully dilated. If we allow for further descent, we can't leave her like that on the background of late decelerations and all. Oxytocin starting doesn't suit. Mid-cavity forceps delivery right now we can't. So the best one is perform an emergency cesarean section. However, the best option, if suppose there is an option of perform an emergency cesarean section, or there is an option of like this, take her to shift to OT and reassess her with a view to delivery, plus minus cesarean section like this. So these kind of options you should opt for, because she's in such an advanced level of dilatation, 9 centimeter, that maybe by the time you shift her to OT, she gets more favorable for instrumental delivery. Regarding category of cesarean section, category 1 is wherever there is immediate threat to life of either the woman or the fetus, like uterine rupture, major abruption, cord prolapse, fetal hypoxia, or persistent fetal bradycardia. So within 30 minutes, our aim is to deliver the baby. Or in category 2, where there is maternal or fetal compromise, but as such, it is not immediately life-threatening. So there, we can have a little more margin, although she has to be shifted as early as possible. But up to 75 minutes margin means, suppose if both the categories of women are there, one has to be taken up for category 1 and another has to be taken up for category 2, and only one OT is there. So you will take this woman up. Category 3 is like no maternal or fetal compromise but needs early birth. And category 4 is birth timed to suit women or healthcare provider, means completely elective cases. Next, SBA, a primary gravida in active second stage labor for 2 hours. Okay, active second stage for 2 hours, she is being monitored. She has now got a pathological CTG. Again, need to deliver at the earliest. Occipito-posterior fetal position. Gestational age is 36. Okay, she's a bit premature. Station +2, cervix fully dilated, analgesia okay, skilled obstetricians is there. What is the most appropriate next step in the management? Now, there is nothing which is, not a criteria in where we can't apply instrumental delivery. So here, the best thing is that we can attempt instrumental delivery. Now, since she's occipito-posterior, so we will look for rotational. So, or trial. So attempt rotational instrumental delivery. So we can go for this. Or if there would have been trial of instrumental delivery in theater, then that would also have been fine. So here the option which suits best is C. Coming to the 9th one, a primary gravida is in labor at 38 weeks. Midwife has called you as the mother is exhausted. CTG is showing a baseline of 170 and an adequate variability. Variable decelerations with W pattern. On examination, none of the presenting part is palpable per abdomen. Cervix being fully dilated, vertex 1+1 station, position is occipito-posterior. However, they need us to classify the CTG only. So here baseline of 170 itself is a red feature. So immediately we can start looking for pathological CTG in the options. So the answer becomes pathological CTG, which is option number C. C. It would be C. C pathological CTG. So wherever we get late deceleration or FHR less than 100 baseline or more than 160, immediately it becomes a red feature, making it a pathological CTG. Regarding the recent change, all late decelerations are now in red and make the CTG immediately pathological. These are the concerning characteristics of variable decelerations, lasting more than 60 seconds, reduced variability within. Either it is not returning to baseline or slowly returning to the baseline, and loss of previously present shouldering. Now coming to the 10th one. 21-year-old Primey is an established first stage of labor. She is a case of GDM on metformin, sugars well under control, fetal weight of 3 kgs and spontaneous onset of labor. She was under continuous CTG monitoring and is progressing well. Uterus is contracting 3 to 4 in 10 minutes, each contraction 40 seconds. Head to 5th palpable and CTG is this. Vaginal examination revealed a well-effaced cervix, 5 to 6 centimeters dilated, membranes are there, vertex at 0 station. What is the most appropriate management option? All right. So here we can see that the CTG is good. If risk is there, GDM on metformin. Baseline, it is okay. Contractions, no contractions as such. Not many contractions are there. However, they have mentioned the contractions. Maybe at this particular time, contractions were not there. Then baseline is fine. Everything looks fine. So here now we have to look for the correct option. Here, continue fetal monitoring and await spontaneous delivery looks the best answer because nothing needs to be done right now. They can give you a normal CTG and just expect you that you choose nothing. Absolutely, you have to choose the option of continue fetal monitoring and await spontaneous delivery. Now coming to the next one, 24-year-old Gravida 3 Para 2 Live 2 at 38 weeks gestation was admitted with a second episode of reduced fetal movements and labor was induced with prostaglandin pessary. She is now in established labor and is contracting well, and vaginal examination done an hour ago revealed 7 centimeter dilated cervix with vertex at 0 to +1 station and meconium. Her CTG now is here. We can see repetitive variable decelerations are there, loss of variability within and for less than 30 minutes right now. Conservative management was done, but still the findings are same. Now, one more thing we can see here is contractions are although okay, the baseline is almost totally going above 160. So again, this CTG straight away becomes pathological because although right now the repetitive variable decelerations are amber, still amber because it is for less than 30 minutes, but the baseline is red. So baseline rate more than 160 is red, variability is okay, but deceleration is amber. So one red, one amber, clearly just one red makes it pathological. So if we have to choose from the given options, the best thing is we can deliver her by cesarean section. This is the summary of the whole CTG. How to categorize. If suppose this baseline would have been less than 160 and just these decelerations were there, making the CTG suspicious only. Only if one amber feature would have been there, the CTG would have been suspicious. So on the background of risk factor like meconium, if we have a suspicious CTG and it is written conservative management done, still same findings, then what we can go for? We can go for fetal scalp stimulation next. Okay, because in the NICE guideline, they have clearly mentioned if the CTG trace is categorized as suspicious on the background of risk factors like slow progress, sepsis, or meconium, Then perform full risk assessment, consider the possible underlying causes, take conservative measures, and consider FSS, fetal scalp stimulation, or expediting birth. Now, considering next SPA, what should be your approach if baseline FHR is ranging between 100 to 109? Okay, so here baseline, if it is between 100 to 109 throughout labor, with normal variability and some early decelerations, what to do? So here it will look that baseline is less than 100. So baseline less than 100 means it is less than 100, it is red. So baseline less than 100 is red, and between 100 to 109 is also here amber. So it will look that it is a suspicious CTG, but no. One thing what they say, answer is D, continue usual care. Although a baseline FHR between 100 to 109 is an amber feature, continue usual care if this has been stable throughout labor and there is normal variability and no variable or late deceleration. So just the presence of early decelerations and only the baseline between 100 to 109 doesn't require any extra additional care. We have to just keep on continuing usual care. Sometimes it may be physiological type of thing. So continue usual care in this case. Coming to the next SBA, here we have to categorize the decelerations. Now, decelerations here are clearly variable because they are not particularly associated with the contractions. So they are variable decelerations. Now, in variable decelerations, we can see that they are associated with more than 50% of the contractions. Okay, so more than 50% of contractions are associated with some deceleration. So they are repetitive, variable, and present for right now less than 30 minutes because this is 10 minutes and right now it is approximately 20 to 25 minutes. So right now we can't say that it is, repetitive, variable decelerations with concerning characteristics. For more than 30 minutes is red, for less than 30 minutes is amber. So here right now it's still amber. If it persists for more than 30 minutes, repetitive variable with concerning characteristics for more than 30 minutes, then it would have been red. Otherwise, right now it is here. All right. Now, Ruby 34-year-old primey at 38 weeks, 6 days, induced with Propes 3 hours before because of some reason. She is 2 centimeter dilated right now and midwife shows you this CTG. What should be the next immediate management? Now, this CTG, first of all, determine the risk she has been induced. Now, next, if we look at the contractions, because she has been induced with Propes, I think she's contracting more. 6 contractions we can see in 10 minutes time. So immediately, since now NST is also, CTG is also getting affected, so we have to remove the Propes and subcutaneous terbutaline is to be given. So the best answer out of all these is option number E. Hyperstimulation occurs in 1 to 5% of prostaglandin-induced labor. Okay, so here hypercontractility can be managed by stopping or reducing the rate of oxytocin. If she's on oxytocin, then we can reduce the oxytocin or stop. Or if any prostaglandin is still present vaginally, we can remove that. And on top of that, we can also administer tocolytics with beta-2 adrenergic drugs. So the answer becomes last one. Coming to the last SPA, a 31-year-old woman in her first pregnancy and with a BMI of 25 is admitted in spontaneous labor at 41 weeks after a straightforward normal pregnancy. She has had most of her antenatal care with her community midwife. Now she reports reduced fetal movements for the last 24 hours and a small amount of fresh vaginal bleeding prior to admission. She is distressed, contracting 4 times every 10 minutes. On examination, SFH is 34 centimeter, uterus is tender. Longitudinal lie presenting part cephalic with 2/5 palpable. The vaginal examination reveals the cervix is 5 centimeter, vertex, right occipitolateral, minimal capoten molding, blood stained liquor is draining. Now CTG shows 40 minutes trace with normal baseline rate of 140. Variability is little. No accelerations, repetitive variable decelerations, each lasting more than 60 seconds means repetitive variable decelerations with concerning characteristics, more than 30 minutes. Immediately the CTG is pathological. Also on top of that, variability is not there. Also on top of that, blood stained liquor. So here immediately we have to prepare her for category 1 LSCS because again, she looks like having abruption. All right. So again, this is the category of cesarean sections and here she is falling into category 1. Now coming to the EMQs. Now here the options are many. So let's first of all, always be in the habit of reading the lead-in statement. Choose the most appropriate management for the scenarios. Each of the above options can be used once, more than once, or not at all. Coming to the scenario itself, the question number 1. A gravida 2 para 1 previous normal vaginal delivery has gestational diabetes and is on insulin. She was induced at 38 weeks, baby being large for dates. Second stage has lasted 2 hours and she has been pushing since she was fully dilated. Means already 2 hours second stage, active second stage has been there. CTG is normal, 2/5 pole are palpable per abdomen. Means she is not fit for instrumental delivery. Vaginal findings, vertex at 0, LOT slightly deflexed, caput is also ++. So now 2/5 pole palpable per abdomen. We have to expedite the delivery anyway because already 2 hours of active second stage have passed. In primary gravida, 2 hours of maximum active second stage of labor. After 2 hours of pushing, we have to do something and achieve birth within 3 hours of pushing. So right now we take the decision to deliver. How we will assist? We can't do with instrumental delivery. We have to take her up for cesarean section. So proceed directly for cesarean section. However, we can re-examine in theater to see if there is any change. So always just look for such an option. If it is there, go for that. Now, okay, in options like these, I think you can also go for emergency cesarean section. This is also a correct option. So always just look at all the options and then you can decide. The second scenario, a primary gravida has been in the second stage of labor for 3 hours and has been pushing for 2 hours. The head is 1/5 palpable. Vaginal findings, vertex is at +1 station. ROP with caput plus, molding plus, the CTG is normal. Now here already again 2 hours of pushing has been done. Head is 1/5 palpable. So any other factor is not there, just ROP and head 1/5 palpable. These two cases will contradict instrumental birth a little, but still we can go for a trial in theater plus minus cesarean section. Although malpositions with 1/5 pole palpable have a higher risk of failure, perineal and anal sphincter trauma, so it's best that we perform a trial in theater and then if it fails, we can immediately take her up for cesarean section. Third one, a gravida 2 para 1 previous vaginal delivery is in prolonged labor. Now she is multigravida, no pole is palpable per abdomen. Findings, vertex +1 station, left occipito anterior, caput is present over the occiput. CTG is showing deep variable decelerations. Okay. There is poor pushing in spite of good contractions due to maternal exhaustion. Now again, she needs assistance. So if no pole is palpable per abdomen, we can take instrumental delivery for her. Since she is multigravida, so no need to shift her to OT because all the other factors are favorable. So we can do a Neville-Barnes forceps delivery in the labor room with pudendal block. So the best answer here is in room. Neville-Barnes forceps delivery in room with pudendal block. Vertex is at +1 station. So Neville-Barnes is best because see mid-cavity forceps at +1, +2, there you can apply Neville-Barnes forceps. Okay, mid-cavity forceps. Rotational Kieland's forceps and low-cavity outlet forceps is Wrigley's. Okay. A primary gravida has been in the second stage of labor and has been pushing for 1 hour. So right now only 1 hour has passed. Head is 1/5 palpable. Now we have to see, if suppose we come to know that a primary gravida second stage pushing only 1 hour, then we start looking at any other factor which necessitates urgent delivery. If none, like here, so we can give her another hour to push. So it's best that we wait for 1 more hour. And then if in case, here the answer would be D, wait 1 more hour. So wait 1 more hour, and if she doesn't deliver even till then, progress is poor, then is the time when we can do operative delivery either through instrumental or through cesarean section. Coming to the fifth EMQ, a 23-year-old para 1 has undergone an induction of labor at 41 weeks 6 days in her first pregnancy. Antenatal period was uneventful. Vaginal prostaglandin gel insertion established labor within 3 hours, and the labor progressed such that 4 hours later, cervix became 5 centimeter dilated with meconium stained liquor, satisfactory CTG. Epidural was instigated. 2 hours later, the fetal head was 1/5 palpable abdominally. Cervix became 9 centimeter dilated, means progress was good. Position was left occipito anterior with minimal caput and molding. Now let's look at CTG. Baseline 165 with no variability. That's bad. Now, small amount of examination, post-examination, vaginal bleeding was also noted. FHR unexpectedly drops to 85 and does not recover. Now, here is the time when we have to immediately shift her for OT, because right now she is cervix 9 centimeter dilated. So we can't straight away put any instrument or anything like that. So here the best answer would be, as I said, if cervix is advanced dilated in advance, is having advanced dilatation, it's best to search for an option like immediate transfer to operating theater for a reassessment with a view to delivery. So the best answer here, it becomes I. A 37-year-old woman in her first pregnancy and with a BMI of 28 is admitted in spontaneous labor at 39 weeks after a straightforward normal pregnancy. She reports reduced fetal movements for 24 hours. There is no history of any vaginal bleeding. She is distressed and contracting 4 times in 10 minutes. On examination, symphysiofundal height is 35, cephalic 1/5 pole palpable, fetal heart 140 plus with regular and 1 audible deceleration. Vaginal examination, 7 centimeter dilated. Vertex occipito anterior with minimal caput and molding, clear liquor draining. Now CTG shows 40 minutes of trace with normal baseline of 140, reduced variability less than 5 for between 30 to 50 minutes is amber. So 1 amber we find here. Repetitive late decelerations. Late deceleration, any kind of late becomes red. So with a pathological CTG at 7 centimeter dilatation, either first we will try conservative measures. If conservative measures are not there in the option, then the next best is to take her up for a cesarean section. So we can deliver her by category 2 cesarean section, as there is nothing like abruption or rupture or cord prolapse. So if things like these are there or any evidence of hypoxia, then it's okay. Otherwise, deliver by category 2 cesarean section. Now the seventh scenario, a 28-year-old in her second pregnancy experienced spontaneous rupture of membranes at 37 weeks. She presented complaining of reduced fetal movements and slight bleeding per vaginum. CTG was commenced and a registrar on call was contacted for a review. This is there 30 minutes ago. Since 30 minutes, these findings means clearly it's sinusoidal pattern. In sinusoidal pattern, just close your eyes and start looking for delivery by category 1 cesarean section or anything like immediate delivery by cesarean section. So the answer becomes A. Now, here a 30-year-old primary gravida with a BMI of 35. Okay, note all the high-risk factors, just keep on noting in your mind. BMI is of 35, spontaneous labor at 39 weeks, effective epidural for analgesia, 4 centimeter dilated at 7 hours, and 9 centimeter dilated at 11 hours. Very good progress, but at 13, that is after 2 hours, the membranes ruptured, spontaneously draining thick fresh meconium, but she is fully now, vertex just below ischial spines in direct occipito posterior position. No head palpable abdominally. CTG pathological. So now we have to expedite the delivery. Since vertex is just below ischial spines, so we can do a trial in theater because BMI is high, so high chances of failure. And also vertex is just below ischial spines, so this is also maybe. So mid cavity forceps we will do, but not in labor room. So best is trial of instrumental delivery in theater. She needs to be delivered now, okay, because CTG is pathological. Now here a 40-year-old primee with an uneventful antenatal history apart from a routine amniocentesis that confirmed normal fetal karyotype 46XX, induced with vaginal prostaglandins and oxytocin. At 15 hours, vaginal examination revealed fully dilated cervix, vertex 1 centimeter above ischial spines. Plan was to wait 1 hour to allow descent. On re-examination after 3 hours, vertex 1 centimeter below ischial spines in LOA with mild caput, contracting every 3 in 10 minutes, CTG normal. Now she is a known carrier of factor 9 deficiency. But since karyotype is 46XX, we can facilitate delivery through instrumental delivery. Okay. So since it's been long, 3 hours have already passed since fully dilated. So the plan is now to expedite the delivery. And the best one, since 1 centimeter below ischial spines, she is fulfilling the criteria for mid-cavity forceps delivery. We can safely choose mid-cavity forceps delivery. Best would be in theater. 10th one, 37-year-old gravida 5 para 4 at 38 weeks was admitted in active labor to labor ward with regular contractions. She's 8 centimeter. EFW was 3.6 kg. Strong family history of diabetes. GDM well managed on diet and metformin. CTG is here. All right. So in CTG, the contractions are adequate in 10 minutes. See, always between this and this is 10 minutes. So contractions are adequate in 10 minutes. Baseline also looks fine around 140. No significant variability is also good. Accelerations, decelerations, nothing as such suspicious, amber or red. So here safely, let's look for the options. We can safely go for here continuous CTG monitoring. Now, why can't we return to auscultation, intermittent auscultation? Why? Because she is GDM. So, and on medications. So if GDM on medications, we'll have to keep her on continuous CTG monitoring. Okay, we can't go back to intermittent auscultation. 36-year-old gravida 2 para 1 with a previous cesarean failure to progress in labor. Previous cesarean was for failure to progress in labor. Now admitted with spontaneous onset of labor. Cervix 6 centimeter, presenting part at 0. CTG is normal initially. Oxytocin was commenced at 23 hours for failure to progress, as her cervix had remained 6 centimeter 2 hours after artificial rupture of membranes. Suddenly, the CTG became as given below. And midwife also says she's unable to identify the presenting part in abdomen. Now, this is very suggestive of, since previous cesarean section, we have to be cautious regarding ruptured uterus. Also on vaginal examination, fresh bleeding is noted. Vertex feels to gone up than before. Seems to be 8 centimeter dilated. Best is either emergency laparotomy or delivery by category 1 cesarean section for the ruptured uterus. So if there is sudden acute bradycardia or a single prolonged deceleration for 3 minutes or more, urgently start looking for options like these. Urgent obstetric review. If acute event, expedite the birth. Consider possible underlying causes and undertake conservative measures as indicated. Make preparations for an urgent birth. Okay, and expedite the birth if acute bradycardia persists for 9 minutes or even less if there are significant risk factors for fetal compromise. Now coming to the last few questions. 24-year-old gravida 3 para 2 live 2 at 38 weeks. She was admitted with second episode of decreased fetal movements and labor was induced with prostaglandin pessary. She is contracting well. Vaginal examination 6 centimeter, vertex at 0 to +1 and meconium. CTG now is given below. Now here we can see that the CTG is showing repetitive variable decelerations because it is associated with more than 50% of contractions. Variability is not there within. There is loss of variability within. But right now, it is for less than 30 minutes. So less than 30 minutes means it is still amber. We can consider FSS because there is background of meconium also, risk factors. So initial conservative measures followed by FSS. So we can do fetal scalp stimulation, that is FSS. So if CTG is suspicious with antenatal or intrapartum risk factors for fetal compromise, then consider digital FSS. All right. What is repetitive deceleration when they occur with over 50% of contractions? What are concerning characteristics? We have already dealt through. 24-year-old gravida 3 para 2 L2 at 38 weeks was admitted with second episode of reduced fetal movements. Labor was induced. The scenario is same as before, but here CTG is given like this. Despite conservative measures, similar findings are coming on CTG. Now here clearly we can see that these are late decelerations. The nadir of the deceleration is coming just after the peak of the contraction. So here clearly they are late decelerations. So we have to expedite the delivery by category 2 or category, yes. Repetitive late decelerations for more than 30 minutes, immediate LSCS, we have to go for it. The last two questions related to VBAC scenarios. So Miss Ananya, para 2 plus 2, 1 CS and 1 VBAC at 38 weeks. Now presenting at 35 weeks. Okay, so she already has had a successful VBAC. So her chances of successful VBAC will increase, obviously, to 85 to 90%. So the best answer here is 85%. Miss Betty, para 1 plus 1 with previous 1 CS asking for her success of VBAC. Now she's 37 weeks. Now she has just had one cesarean section. That's it. No previous successful VBAC before. So her chances will reduce to 72 to 75%. So the best answer is H. So these two percentages are actually very important. Okay, guys. So that was all. Hope these were some of the helpful scenarios for you to revise some of the CTG pictures, the cesarean section and assisted vaginal birth. All the very best for your exams. May all of you pass with flying colors. Okay, bye-bye.